All right. All right. Okay, whenever you are ready. Oh, I'll go ahead, hang on. So the purpose of this is to brief the committee on South Florida Water Management District's cutting edge modeling and ramping up of both operational and structural flood control mechanisms. And this relates to the public engagement new activity 3.2. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Dr. Carolina.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I apologize. In my calendar, I had a big note saying 11 a.m. I did have other meetings in the morning, so I was following that note, and I never really went back and tracked with the final agenda for the meeting, so I apologize for any confusion on my part. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I have immense respect, and I will never say no to Jennifer. So thank you, Jennifer, again, for the invitation and for having us here to share a little bit of the work that we are doing on how we are bringing extreme rainfall numbers, right? How we are observing today, how we are forecasting for the future, and how we embedded that into planning, flood vulnerability, flood adaptation planning, and also as we move into some of the projects implementation. So thank you again. I'm fine to move to the next slide. So I don't think I need to introduce too much our district, but it's always good to have this as a background. So one of the 5 water management districts in the state, we are nearing 9.5 million residents, 16 counties. We have a very large, one of the largest stormwater management systems in the US, and we control all those features on a 24/7 basis to ensure that the levels that we need to be in the system are matching all the regulation schedules every day, every hour. So our mission does involve flood control, water supply, ecosystem restoration, and as you all know, those finding the balances to achieve all those goals is always a big endeavor, and we work very closely to ensure that we are always achieving our mission here. Next one, please. This complex water management system that I mentioned is called Central and Southern Florida Project. It was designed and implemented by the Army Corps after major events, hurricane events that happened in the late 1920s and again early 1940s that really triggered the need for a system that would help drain water. Flood control system basically was born as a flood control system, as a drainage canal to avoid those really devastating flooding events that occur after those hurricanes and major events that really had the cost of more than 2,000 lives. Next one, please. I mentioned that we manage that for water supply, flood control, and environmental restoration. I really like those 2 images here that I borrowed from Broward County and the University of South Florida. We have really a representation on how we have to maintain those levels, and the challenge that I was mentioning in terms of not a lot of flexibility. If we bring the levels too high, we are protecting water supplies, we are causing increasing flooding risks. If we're bringing too low, it's the opposite direction, and all of that needs to be done in a way that we are ensuring all the ecosystem needs. So very complex mission. We have a very capable team that has several tools on their behalf to support this. And the focus of what I'm going to be talking today is how this complex system already by itself on a static place is already a challenge. But then when we bring those evolving conditions, right, if you hit the next, you're going to see there. One next, please. We're going to see that we have changes, we're observing, right, changes in the basic hydrologic system. So rainfall, evapotranspiration, and of course, groundwater infiltration, runoff, all of those dependent factors. So we have, our understanding is we need to monitor very closely how those risk factors inform and really support the decision-making in the system that has already not a lot of flexibility. Next one, please. We are prepared, as I said. We have a full water management team, water managers that are here 24/7 in our control room. We have year-round preparation to be ready for those events. We have real-time data for all those major structures that are available to every partner, local government, to also be working with us throughout those events. We do perform pre-storm water drawdown. So when we anticipate a major rainfall flooding event, we are able to draw down the system and create some storage for those runoff volumes. And we coordinate very closely with local drainage districts, local governments, as I said, because we need to do this jointly. It's our main system, main primary canals, but it's also secondary and tertiary systems that need to function together. We do have an EOC in-house. We operate during major storms to really make sure that we are responding on a very effective way, and also getting all the FEMA protocols in place, and funding that comes along. We have coordination at the EOC level with all the local governments as well. We do emergency modeling to understand, forecast, and better respond to this during those activations. We also do that not only for flood. Of course, the flooding and hurricane is the more frequent events, but if we do have a severe drought event, we also have the capacity to activate EOC and help in the response. And we participate in statewide and local mitigation strategy committees, and all of that also inform our resiliency planning. Next, please. So I was talking about the changing conditions, and that slide helps us to understand this. So traditional planning, we used to look at population growth, urban development, and of course, just build out and how the system itself evolve. We do see throughout Florida, also specifically here, I'm showing Southeast Florida, but it's the same type of change that we see in terms of urbanization, very dense urban areas, in a complete different scenario than this project was developed and designed, right? So we have less storage, we have less infiltration, we have a significant portion of runoff that we handle today that was not accounted as part of the original design. So that's also, again, the need to continue to have this system ready to operate and respond. In addition to the traditional planning, next one, please. Traditional planning variables. Next one, please. We also have this changing conditions. I'm going to focus on sea level next. I'm going to move to rainfall. But a lot of our system and the way we maintain levels is dependent on the gradient and a difference between the ocean level and the inland level, the freshwater level inland. So we call headwater, tailwater. So we need this headwater, the fresh water, to be higher to discharge, to open gates and discharge when we need to lower the canals. So what we are seeing is already 6 to 8 inches of average sea level increase, which automatically reduces our capacity to discharge to the tailwater. So higher sea levels means less discharge. And in the left here, you see a graph on the number of hours that the gate is closed because the ocean level is higher than the inland level. So we do have a trend there. We are documenting that in several structures right now. And we do have extreme events. This is one example here. This is a video. So those gates were built. You can hit play there. This is going to play. But basically, this is the saltwater moving inland, bypassing the top of a gate during a high tide event in 2019. So freeboard gate that was built there with a decent amount of freeboard, almost 2 feet, that was supposed to hold the saltwater to the ocean side, tailwater there, and not allow this to come in the top of the ocean at that specific high tide events, truly bypass, and saltwater was coming inland. Next one, please. We are able to monitor closely and have forecasts on how sea level is increasing. This is, I would say, long-term research that is being led by a lot of federal agencies, mostly NOAA. We also have a task force that was implemented right now. So we do rely on 2 major reports from NOAA. One was done in 2017, second one in 2022. The good news is that we have reduced uncertainty, meaning for low, intermediate, high projections, we are seeing a little bit more certainty from the models. This is good news. We need to understand, we're talking about risks, and we need to understand how we account for those risks as we plan for future scenarios, as we design this infrastructure to withstand those future conditions. So again, just reinforcing that this sea level rise projections is something that has extensive research. The research is leading to reduce uncertainty, and we are working on those scenarios here using the latest 2022 NOAA that is also now reflected to the statewide sea level rise curves that were published by the Florida Flood Hub more recently. Next one, just showing the difference between the numbers. So 2017, you could see a larger spread into the future. 2022, you see a little bit of a reduction between the spread of high, intermediate, high, lower curves. So really, again, helping us to have a little bit more focus on how we plan for those future conditions. Next one, please. Now stepping into rainfall, a very big factor, much harder to detect, much harder to do science and have the numbers on a way that they have been evolving on the sea level rise from. Here I have just some recent events. I have more. I just selected two of the major ones. Fort Lauderdale Airport, April 12, 2023. New state record, according to some of the sources, 25.91 here as one event, a daily, top 5 daily, right, events. We were able to map the recurring, the frequency of that specific event on each grid cell. This is the database that we use to monitor rain. So basically, the darker is the higher frequency. So this event, for those dark red cells, brown red cells on the top, on the bottom left picture there, those 4 cells there had an event that was over 1,000 years. So very rare event for that specific location here on that day in April 2023. Devastating impacts, you can see photos there from the impacts of that specific rainfall event. Just rainfall, not a tropical storm, extreme rainfall event. On the right, I have a tropical storm rainfall event, Hurricane Ian 2022. Again, we were able to plot there the recurrence on the dark brown cells. In this case, we have above 200 years, a little bit less rare, but it's still a significant rare event. The system in general, the systems that we have can handle 25-year event. We are here talking about a 200-year event, very large magnitude, 14 to 15 inches of rainfall that fell in these locations during Ian. And again, exacerbating any of the design conditions for those systems. Next one, please. And then, okay, we understand that we're going to be handling those extremes, and the way we think about that is how we react, right? We manage the system. We talk about flood control and dry conditions and water supply. So what we are seeing in terms of the rainfall is wetter wet seasons, right? And drier dry seasons. This is some of the data that is pointing to us. So more intense frequent floods, and at the same time, more intense frequent droughts. We need to monitor those extremes on both sides. One of the options that we have been looking at is storage, right? This is one of the solutions. This is one of the things we need to, and that's a piece of how we think we can handle those extremes if they continue to go in this direction. So having the ability to store water when we have those extreme events, remove them from impacting areas, removing them from urban areas, removing them from agricultural and natural areas, storing for when we need. So in the dry season, if we do see those dry seasons, we can then use those volumes that were prevented from inundating where we don't want to be inundated, and then helping us to bring water levels up during the dry season, again, serving all the purposes that we have, environmental and water supply needs in our region. Next one, please. So what we are doing for that, what we are talking about infrastructure, we are talking about all of those efforts that we need to do in terms of planning, and one front that we invest is data. So we have an effort that is water and climate resilience metrics. That's the whole project, the effort that we have as a team here. So we start by monitoring observed conditions. Do we have a trend in historical observations? Period. How we can interpret this, and is this a statistical significant trend? So is this just noise, or is this really showing a trend and an evolving condition? With that information, then we start really formulating scenarios. So we have been doing that for a series of metrics. I have on the left here about 7 metrics that we have data story maps all data is provided to, in this story maps we have by each station, and every documented trend is there, and it's saying how significant it is, or if it's not, and if we cannot read any sign of. So it's all in this portal, and we continue to develop more of those assessments. And then based on this, where we identify trends, we start formulating for those future scenarios. So on the right here, you see some of our tools, and I'm going to really focus on the rainfall tool next. So next one, please. So observe trends in rainfall. What we see here is for one of the basins is Caloosahatchee Basin. We do it by region. We don't do it by station because there is significant noise when we look at rainfall. So you're going to see a lot of trends and variations in very opposite directions, not spatially correlated, not time correlated. It's just a lot of data pointing to different directions. When we bring this data to a more regional scale, we start seeing some signals, and that's the approach that we develop in the agency. So in this specific basin here, we have data for all the basins, but in this specific basin is Caloosahatchee, the wet season. So when we look at the rain during the wet months, we see a trend. So that's what is plotted in this chart here. So the blue line shows the trend, and then the yellow and the orange just show the significant intervals that we use to validate the trend. Again, as I said, the story map has this information for everyone, all of those locations. And then we also have for dry season, annual, specific events. There is a large amount of data there. And I'm adding all the links for you in this PowerPoint. And I just want to point to the fact that these results that you're seeing on the story map, they ended with data until 2018. We have just rerun all of those analyses, all of those trends with data until 2024. And we're going to publish next year in March. We have results. We're going to bring some of those results, an initial glance at the upcoming Southwest Florida Summit. Our technical lead will share some of that, but the final publication and final results will be March 2026. Next one, please. So, okay, we know there is a trend in some locations. We need to consider those trends as we plan for those future conditions. How we do that? It's not just extrapolating the trend. I wish it was easy like that, but no, we have to consider many aspects. And the way we have been looking at that is through analysis of global models, global climate models. There was a workshop back in 2019 that laid out a path for us on how we want to look at those future conditions. So as a short-term strategy, they asked us to look at, this workshop recommended that we look at available global climate model, downscaling data sets. So a resolution that could help us read how rainfall might occur in Florida. Is still a lot of uncertainty. I'm going to share some results of this short-term strategy. Because those cells are large, because this statistical downscaling does not really give us all the answers and how represents everything that occurs in Florida, we still have large uncertainties, but we do have numbers, and we are using those to formulate scenarios as of now. Long-term strategy is the development of a model that would represent rainfall occurrence in Florida. So really looking at particular conditions, mechanisms of rainfall in our state, accounting for the large ocean boundary that we have, ocean-land interaction that we have, sea breeze contributions, the way the tropical storms and all of those processes that really influence rainfall in our state here. Next one, please. So on the short-term front, we work with the USGS, Florida International University. We develop what we are calling change factors. So using available climate models, downscaling data sets, we look at every available data set out there. We made extensive comparisons, and we develop what we call a change factor. So it's a multiplier on what we have in terms of a design event, a 100-year event, a 1 in 25-year event. So we add a multiplier to capture what would be those conditions 50 years from now. So this study itself focuses on 30 years from now, 50 years from now, so 2 multipliers for every specific event, and we can use for planning. This is planning purposes only at this point. I mentioned uncertainty, So we really use for when we are modeling future conditions, flood vulnerabilities, adaptation planning, we start with the consideration of this risk factor. Next one, please. So the whole scientific support for this effort is here in this portal from the USGS. I have 3 links there: the 2022 data release, the 2023 data release, and the final report. So really the science, the way we downscale the data, that we downloaded the downscaling data, the way that we assess and how we combine all of that to make those change factors are here in those reports. I have all the links there. Next one, please. And we produce as well a report that is our report internal to the agency, is more like a technical memorandum format. So how we adopt. So we had all the science, we had all those models, we had the combination of all those models. And then here for our resiliency planning, for our flood vulnerability assessments, how we are adopting those results, this science to formulate scenarios into the future. So I have a link as well to this report. Next one, please. And here is basically the summary of those results, a quick snapshot of those numbers. So thinking about a 25-year, one day duration event, it's a 4% chance event for a 1 day. We have here numbers that I'm presenting by county. So let's get one example here. We have Charlotte County, for instance. I believe I can read 1.22, 23, so it would be a 22% increase in the 25-year event. On the right here, it's then for the 100-year, 3-day duration. So 100-year, 3-day durations event, 1% chance. We are on the 1.3 for Charlotte County as well. So that means 30% increase in what today's 100-year event is. This 100-year event is determined by NOAA. It's called Atlas 14. So we get this number from this rainfall frequency report. What they tell us, it's 100-year, 3-day duration event. We multiply by 30%, and that's how we formulate scenarios for the future. Next one, please. I have also the same numbers plotted here for you, just on a different visual. So in this case, I'm using Southwest Florida region. So if we look at this blue shaded area there, that represents the whole area that those numbers would apply. And that's what we see here is, of course, increase a little bit by the events, but between 8% increase to 30% increase, 32% increase for the different durations and different frequencies here. So again, showing how we are using those factors to help us project those future extreme rainfall factors into the future. Next one, please. We are working very closely with the state on all of this effort. And after we completed our first assessment, actually the Florida Flood Hub was established. They do this type of work as part of their mission. And since then, we have been working extremely closely with them. So the Florida Flood Hub is one of the 5 programs that were established by the FDP Resilient Florida program. So this bill was approved in 2021, Senate Bill 1954 and House Bill 7019, unanimously passed on both chambers and created the Florida Flood Hub for Applied Science. As I said, we work very closely with them on all this future scenarios formulation. Also establish regional resiliency entities as a support for resilience, recognized. We have the famous grant program for planning and also implementation. And we have the statewide flood and sea level rise resiliency plan and the comprehensive statewide data set and assessment on most of the critical assets that we have in the state. Next one, please. So the Florida Flood Hub, as I said, is what is now at the state level establishing those future scenarios. They have right now scientific and technical work groups. The Sea Level Rise Work Group produce what we call, I just referred to as the statewide sea level rise curve. And we also have the Rainfall Work Group. I'm part of this work group. So basically, the work that was done by the South Florida Water Management District is now extended statewide. We have the same type of estimate change to depth, duration, and frequency of those extreme rainfall events based on those change factors. And the link that I have here is the result that was produced by USGS now at the state level, statewide results, the last data release. And in addition to that, the Florida Flood Hub is leading the long-term effort. Really, the development of this model that is specific for our state is now under the Florida Flood Hub responsibility, and we are collaborating with them. Next one, please. So these two slides I borrow from the Florida Flood Hub. Dr. Jacoby presented to us here in our Resilience Coordination Forum in May. So I'm not bringing this whole slides, but I asked him to borrow two of his slides just to give a big picture. So what they produce is statewide as part of what they call a phase one, again, expanding from what the Water Management District did. They also did collect the latest and greatest climate model results. So when we developed at the Water Management District, we were still at CMIP 5. It was year 5 round of those climate models. After that, the round 6 became available. So the Florida Flood Hub took the lead and incorporated those latest global climate models. And what we see here is a little bit of the comparison between what was presented in CMIP 5 and now in 6. I brought that slide on the sea level rise because I really think the same thing is happening here. We are reducing a little bit the uncertainty. We do see a little bit less the spread as we evolve with those global climate models. So good news again. And I'm glad that the Florida Flood Hub took the lead on bringing this latest one. So there will be a report that will be published. The report was ready for CMIP 5. Then the work group decided to incorporate all CMIP 6 when we saw there was significant information coming up on those latest models. And then also now we extended 5 more years to target 2080 because 2075 was becoming short and the new statute is now requiring us to look at 2080. So this is done, as I said, and it's probably going to be published soon for the whole state. Next one. And then the specific model that would then be reading rainfall in Florida, right? This additional long-term effort, which we are calling a statewide couple ocean atmosphere regional climate model, is now just kickoff. It took us 3 years to get this project funded. We are really excited to begin working on this effort. We have 3 universities working with us. The Florida Flood Hub that is in USF. We have University of Miami. is working on the first phase of the study, which is really the ocean boundary. They use the community Earth system model. It's a 25-kilometer model, atmospheric and ocean, and the ocean is 10 kilometer. So they're going to be running this initial boundary conditions. FSU is the next one. They are producing the regional scale model. It's a model developed by SAU. Regional ocean system model is at a 10-kilometer grid. And then all of this information, boundary information, is carried forward to USGS. They're going to be running what we call a WRF, Weather Research and Forecast Model, in a 2 to 4. I think we are landing on a 2-kilometer grid right now, over the land. So on the land, when we touch our land mass here in our peninsula, this is going to be the scale of the third level here that is going to be run by USGS on the WRF model. So all of that this setup of those 3 efforts will really allow us to capture rainfall occurrences from all these contributions, all the way from the ocean, from the large global models, all the way to our peninsula, and really hoping to capture and reduce uncertainty on how we anticipate those extreme events into the future. Next one, please. How we use that? So now touching on how we have been incorporating that as part of our system improvement, infrastructure investments, and overall response. So we have a program that is about a decade-old program right now. It's what we call Flood Protection Level Service Program. So we run very advanced tools, models in a basin by basin scale. We formulate scenarios that account for land use development, that account for sea level rise, and that account for those extreme rainfall events and increase. So basically, we run all of those flood driving factors, and we we have a better understanding on what the current infrastructure is able to respond and what are the investments needed to make this infrastructure continue to respond under those future conditions. So all of those findings from those models that are run through the flood protection level of service are now incorporated into what we call our sea level rise and flood resiliency plan. We have a parallel to the statewide plan that is done in South Florida, developed here really to understand what are the flood vulnerabilities in our area, mainly attached to the system. So we focus on the system that we are responsible for maintaining, operating, and we have here all the investments that are needed to keep up with what we need to do as these conditions evolve. We also work extremely close with the Army Corps. They designed the system originally. They help us maintain and operate. They help us operate, not maintenance is our responsibility, but they're working very closely with us. And they have avenues that will allow us also to make those investments. So we have been doing extensive studies with them to understand what are those investments and basically revalidate the findings that we have done through our assessments here in the agency. Next one, please. So here is a glance. I don't want to spend too much time. We do have about 160 projects that have been initially identified in our plan right now. We are beginning to implement a few of those. So the map on the right shows those points where we have structure enhancements, canal enhancement, some of the storage areas that we are looking initially on bringing to this plan here as well, to this strategy. On the middle here is where we are stepping into implementation. So on the left, Big Cypress green area, we have the basis of everything has been the level of service program and the assessments. And we have some of the basing funds to implement these infrastructure projects. We have also received a grant from DEP that covers some of the structures in this area. Moving to the north, Upper Kissimmee Basin, we are working after those major hurricanes, Ian and Milton. There is post-disaster funds. We have applied for some of this funding to hopefully receive funding from FEMA, FDM post-disaster. So we have right now a total of 8 projects. They combine structures and canal enhancements, each of them. And we applied 3 of them for Ian, 5 of them for, it was 4, but we reapplied 1 of them. So 5 for Milton's funding. And we are going through the review process with DM right now. Moving to the Lower East Coast, I mentioned Army Corps studies. We have a significant number of parallel studies there with the Corps. So the red area is mostly what we are calling a Section 203 study right now, revisiting the findings that we have in the agency. And we are going to present what in the Army Corps word is called Tentative Selected Plan next week. So 8 of those structures in Broward are now under this study with a potential federal appropriation to help us implement those projects. Purple area in this map, we got funding from FEMA pre-disaster, not the post-disaster, but pre-disaster funds. We have 3 projects that we completed design, and we are hoping and targeting to initiate construction in 2026, early 2026. The cyan blue area is Miami. It's another study with the Corps, similar to the 203. We call it 216. It's all those different authorities under the Corps word that allows us to do those studies. We have 4 structures there. And the orange, we have 2 efforts going on right now that we're going to be looking BBC and comprehensive that can allow us to really study those. We have not started yet. And on the top, I have the yellow, I skip it. We have some projects identified in the Palm Beach County, also through the level of service study, and we have been receiving grants from DEP as well to implement those projects. We also receive grants from DEP to implement the projects on the purple area here. So we have construction funds as well for these 3 projects in the purple area. Next one, please. So next steps. We're going to continue to successfully complete those ongoing flood vulnerability planning studies and adaptation, right? Really confirming feasibility of all those infrastructure projects that we have already identified. Some of them have feasibility completed. Some of them are in early stages. We call them conceptual projects. So there is a significant amount of work that we call adaptation planning work is still in place, and really feasibility engineering assessments to make those projects more concrete and really understand what are the needs. We have to continue to advance funding strategies. This is a challenge, continue to be a challenge, as it is in all the organizations. So we have plans to continue to obtain funds for those projects. We will continue to refine data analysis, scenario formulation. This is important. We work with uncertainty. We are learning to live in this world of uncertainty, but the more we can get data supporting the decisions, the better it will be. The conversations with the engineering will be much better. So we need to continue to invest on this path so we can have all the science backing up the decisions we are making in terms of freeboards, in terms of sizing of all this infrastructure. We continue to coordinate with the Florida Flood Hub and DEP in advancing this statewide coupled ocean atmosphere model. And also we have been stepping into the drought. We have what we call water supply vulnerability assessment, following the format of flood resilience vulnerability assessments. So really to identify on the drought side of the risk here, what would be some of the infrastructure investments that we might need. At this point, we are just at the early vulnerability assessment phases. We have input data prepared for those models. Next one, please. With that, I want to say thank you. I'm open for questions, and I'm more than happy to be here again. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, and the entire board here today.
Thank you. Any questions? I have so many, but I want to make sure that everyone else. All right, well, if no one else has any, I'm going to start asking a couple, Carolina. So you looked at average totals and duration, and I was just wondering, looking at kind of cross basin results, if you saw anything about any kind of distribution changes across basins. You know, is there any difference between, for instance, coastal areas versus inland areas in the changes that you're seeing? That was my first question.
So thank you for this question. The first round that we did in terms of assessing trends did not give us a very strong signal, but we did see a little bit more in the West Coast and the western areas in the West Coast than in the east and central areas. Some of the models that we have been, and not all of them, also show stronger signal in this West Coast. But again, I don't want to say that with all the property, because there is still uncertainty that is large. So when we start overlapping and the uncertainty reigns, that signal is not that much strong. But yes, we start seeing those in the first year of the rainfall trend runs. We are seeing again as we are updating those rainfall trend analysis. And now some of the models, not all the global models, were also pointing to this direction. So definitely on a signal that was beginning to see in the West Coast, not as with the same intensity in the East, but also a little of that in the East Coast and near the ocean. And we also capture some of those signals inland as well. Just unfortunate that we don't have anything that is very statistically significant that we can say, yes, in this area is more or less, or there is any kind of spatial distribution. I would say at this point it's early.
Yes, so it might be that we just don't have enough data collected yet to create those statistically significant results yet, but over time we might see those develop. I wondered, one other thing is like timing. You know, obviously, like on the East Coast, they get the rains early in the morning, typically. Over here on the West Coast, we typically get them in the afternoon. Did you see anything changes about timing? Also, like dry spells in the rainy season. You know, our rainfall on the West Coast used to be more daily, very predictable. And now it's become very sporadic, even in the rainy season, where we get these weird dry spells in the rainy season. Did you see anything with timing that changed or anything interesting out of that?
No, thank you again. I always admire you because you can go on those questions, and I love how you do this. But we have done everything I presented to you here, and the information that you have on the website is only for daily, not sub-daily. So it's total amount of rain in a day, minimum. And then 2 days, 3 days, up to 7 days. The sub-daily it was a second effort. We started maybe a year later, and we start doing the same type of analysis. But if you think you saw noise in the daily, the noise and the lack of data on the sub-daily was the biggest challenge, because the type of instrumentation changed significantly throughout those years when we were talking about sub-daily data, hourly data. We also got all these different locations with the different stations. Like there was just a lot of changes in the where the data is available, the quality of the data. So in order to obtain, so USGS is very strict about it, and they had a set of criteria. So minimum 30 years, I believe they have 25 to 30 years at least for us to start talking about a trend. This type of quality of the data. So a list of criteria. And I think at the end, there was only 3 stations statewide that really fulfill all the criteria from their requirements. And we were laughing because, I mean, yes, we could do, and we did an analysis at the sub-daily scale at those 3 locations. The best ones were near Tallahassee. We did see trends in sub-daily, meaning that the hourly event is increasing more than perhaps the total day, right? Which is what we are seeing, kind of intensity in a shorter time scale. But again, it's frustrating. I will share with you all. We spend time and energy on this, but the data does not allow us to make any statement at this point. It's sparse data, different quality. So we have a paper that was published on this sub-daily analysis I can share with you. I didn't include a link here I can bring. And we were hoping to get some analysis done for this year, the 2026 South Florida Environmental Report, but we postponed 1 more year because we want to try to see if we can get some additional data from other sources or combine them with satellite or something. So 1 more year, maybe we can give some information that is better than what we have now for the sub-daily. But no, we do not have data that I can point to this specific question that you made, Jennifer, that we are beginning to observe, but we cannot document.
No, that's really helpful to understand where the limitations were too of your analysis and what we can be doing or advocating for to help support being able to take this to the next level. I don't know if anyone else had any other questions, but I had one more.
I think we have time for one more.
Okay, good. All right. Then the last one is, obviously what happened in Fort Lauderdale, was kind of an anomaly of sorts, but on the other hand, we are seeing more instances of these like 200 and maybe even sometimes 500-year rain events that are not associated with hurricanes happening sporadically globally around the country and even in Florida. So I wondered if any of what you're doing you thought could be useful in trying to understand what conditions precipitate such an event, and so that maybe eventually there could be some kind of forecasting of sorts to understand when conditions are forming that might create such an event like that kind of rain bomb event that happened in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, I can talk about a presentation that I heard. I'm definitely not the expert to talk about that, but it was done by USGS. They did an incredible job on really driving each aspect of the formation of that specific event, combining the sea breeze contribution that was coming, combining some of the wind that allowed basically this the sea breeze that was pushing some of the clouds, plus the wind coming in another direction that allowed this staggering condition on top of those 4 cells that I show you on the map. And they can explain with a lot of property some of those meteorological factors that really caused that event to occur and help us to explain. A lot of that is being captured as part of this effort that we are doing with the Florida Flood Hub right now. I mean, every step that was described on this presentation from John Stam from USGS is somehow captured in the approach, the scope of work that we have undergoing right now, meaning that the tool that we get, if we are successful in merging all those steps and accomplishing the tasks that we have in this project, would allow us to model those conditions. And perhaps, I don't want to say that we could forecast. I think there are many agencies out there with this capacity, but at least provide information that would be able to support some of this better understanding, right? So I really recommend, and I'm more than happy to find a link to that presentation, because it's the best I've seen that explains the processes and everything for that event. And again, it's truly being incorporated as part of the development of this scope of work, so we can kind of at least map those processes that caused that rainfall event, to make sure those processes are captured in this effort that we're doing right now.
Yeah, and so I just want to, first of all, thank you for this excellent presentation. And I just want to say that this is a bit of a plug. Dr. Maran is going to be one of our illustrious speakers at the summit, as well as some of her staff going into greater depth on all of these topics. Dr. Jacoby from Florida Flood Hub will also be presenting. We contacted Dr. John Stam. He said next year. He's taking a pass this year. He wanted to have his results a little bit more formalized before presenting them. So, you know, this event that we do every year is helpful in kind of showcasing and sharing these emerging bits of information to help us understand how conditions are changing, how they're impacting us, and what we can do to better prepare our communities for these new conditions. And so we really appreciate you taking time out. I don't know if many of you have heard, but Dr. Maran has been promoted to this incredible position. Not only is she the Chief Resiliency Officer for South Florida, but she now is the Division Director over all water supply and all flood control planning for the district. So an immense job, and very cool that they're getting wrapped together, the resiliency, the water supply, and the flood control to be looked at comprehensively. So, you know, kudos to you and the district, and thank you for taking time out of your extra busy schedule now that you have that increased role.
No, thank you, Jennifer. I want to just say thank you again for the incredible partnership all those years. I truly enjoy working close with you, your team at CHNAP. We appreciate how you approach your work, how we can have the opportunity to exchange knowledge, to exchange approaches. I know we are always tapping into similar challenges. We are learning on how we put those models together, assumptions that we need to make, and really coordinating with you and your team there is great. I appreciate all the chances that we have to exchange information and knowledge. And this is where we are. It is this new endeavor for all of us. We joke here internally that none of us are experts on any of that, but sitting down and together and exchanging the knowledge is how we're going to be able to understand. And again, having the chance to collaborate with you is key. And I appreciate you always working so closely with us. And I just want to say thank you.